Simple ETL processes in SQL Management Studio. Hello, I would like to show you today how to manage simple ETL processes with the help of SQL Server Import and Export Wizard. It's a native service that can be created directly in SQL Management Studio and run through Program Search SQL Server 2017 or any higher version RC1 Execute Package utility, or with a double click on a created package with the extension DTSX. This service has many useful properties for ETL processes such as export-import of TXT, CSV, Excel and many other file formats, while the format is in one code page, no matter the size of the treated data source. Starting with the simplest case, importing a text file to the user database. To do so, we should right-click on the database, choose Tasks, Import Data. We don't choose Import Flat File in new version as it's for a fast file import with very limited parameter choice. Here we can see the starting page of the wizard. It's possible to skip it for the next time. Next. In the data source, we choose Flat File Source, which already includes any delimited file sources like delimited TXT, delimited CSV, etc. In the file name, we choose our sample document. Keep in mind that it supports even very big text files of millions of records. Local, we keep it as is. As it's simple text, without Unicode special symbols, we don't tick the Unicode option. Code page by default is 1252. In case we have specific symbols, it's better to parameterize the Unicode code page through this choice option, choosing 65001 UTF-8, as default Unicode parameter doesn't identify well the symbols, unless it's 100 compatibility with the Unicode text. For the format, in most of the cases it's delimited. Delimiter means that division between the values in a row can be tab delimited, comma delimited, semicolon delimited, etc. Text qualify is another way to divide one value in a row from another, especially useful when we have long description that can contain apostrophe or tabs or anything else, to avoid the unexpected division of one column value to several columns. In most of the cases there is no text qualifiers, or there is used quotation mark. Header row delimiter in most of the cases is standard, so we leave it as is. Header row to skip is usually 0, unless we would like to skip some lines that contain properties or metadata of the values below. Column names in the first data row can be ticked if we have the column names defined in the file source. In the columns section, we have a small preview of the raw files we're about to import, row delimited that for flat files is usually standard, and the column delimiter options to choose. If we have values divided by tabs like in our examples, we choose tab in the menu. A small note: if you change the text qualifier from 0 to, for example, quotation mark after you have checked the preview, it will not change the header's value. So the header value will contain the quotation mark, as it will be not recognized as text qualifier and you will have to restart all the process. In the advanced section, you can parameterize the output name of the columns, how you would like to see it in your table, the delimiter of every column, data type, and output column widths. The last two ones are necessary when we have dates or numbers, as that parameter influences a lot on the performance of the ETL. For example, how much time will it take to make the import, which is rather important for huge files. For simple text columns, we use string DTSTR, which will be varchar format in our table, or text stream DTText, which will be char format. In case of numbers, we can use standard 4-byte integer, signed if we have negative values and unsigned if it's only positive values. If we have small numbers, we can use single byte or 2-byte integers. However, for identifier number values, it's better to use string format, as it's easier to operate with. For dates, we can use DTDate format. Output column width is another important parameter. By default, it's 50, but most of the descriptions or even some names can contain more than that, and in case we forget to adjust this parameter, we can get a cut value in the best case or an error with the import failure. After all those parameters, we can check the final preview and click Next. In the next window, we choose the destination. If we want to import it to our database, we should choose SQL Server Native Client 11 or higher. Then we have the server name. It's by default our DB if we have opened the wizard from that DB. If there is no server, then you should write on your own or copy-paste the name of the server, as drop-down list can be buggy and not show the list of the servers, especially if you have multiple servers in a corporate network. The database value should be predefined too, or chosen from the drop-down list. If you made any changes in the database in the meanwhile, you can use the refresh button to have the most recent snapshot of the database. We click Next. In the window, we choose the new table name and we can edit mappings in case we have an existing table with the same name. It's very useful if we want to automate the import process. We click Next. Here we choose to run immediately and to save CCIS package so that next time we can launch the file with the same parameters automatically from the same source to the same destination. We click Next. We check the small recap of the import and then Finish. When the import process is finished, we can check how many rows were imported, if there were any errors or notification, etc. And the Close button becomes active and we can close the session. In case there are any errors, we can return back to the parameters, delete the table from the DB and restart the import. In case we have this culture error, we can simply change the regional parameters of Windows 10, for example, changing any European English, Belgian or French English into internationally recognized English, as Management Studio doesn't always operate well with some local page encoding.